me ask you something. If you ran the banks, the courts, the media, the military, and the history books, why would you need to hate or be scared of me? That's the question nobody wants to answer that I've had for a long time. Because anti-black racism doesn't make logical sense. And the moment you actually examine it, the whole thing falls apart. Black people live in community with each other and focus on ourselves. So the concept of being so obsessed with another group of people that you have to go out of your way to hate, oppress, violate, talk bad about, besmirch, to validate your own existence, and to reinforce this false hierarchy you've developed in your mind is not only illogical, it's mind-boggling. So what is it about black people that anti-blackness is so much of a part of the fabric of this country that even immigrant populations adapt to it and participate in this very specific type of racism? You'll often hear us say, white people are obsessed with black people. And it's absolutely the truth, because when your entire existence is hinged on a racial hierarchy and that caste system being the foundation of this country, you can't stomach that we have any autonomy over our bodies and our destinies. And that means racism, hate are your only semblance of power over us in modernity. And via colonization, this anti-black sentiment spread like wildfire. White supremacy built a story, a very specific, very intentional story, where the people doing the most damage somehow convinced the world that the people they were damaging were the dangerous ones, and somehow the perpetrators of some of the most heinous crimes around the globe, who have literally changed the face of the world, are the good guys, the default, the status quo. That's a massively successful PR campaign, and it's been running for 500 years. The genocide of the indigenous peoples across the Americas, 60 million people gone. That happened. The transatlantic slave trade, 12 to 15 million people forcibly removed from their homeland, worked to death, bred like livestock, raped and treated like cattle, their children gone, their names erased. The Belgian Congo, King Leopold's regime killed an estimated 10 million Congolese people, hands chopped off as punishment for not meeting rubber quotas. 10 million people. The bombing of Iraq, 1 million people dead. Afghanistan, Vietnam, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, civilian populations gone. And then those same people turned around and called us violent. They called us violent when they lynched black families and brought their children to watch like it was a county fair. And these people are your grandparents today. They bombed Black Wall Street, one of the most prosperous black communities in American history, because we built something. And the sick nature of the white identity is that no black person can supersede them in any way without retaliation. They sterilized black and indigenous women without consent. They experimented on black bodies without anesthesia. They redlined us into poverty and then criminalized the poverty they created. And then they wrote it out of the textbooks, a complete whitewashing of history, to the point where my content even has to exist to teach black stories and history, because if left to white people, their cookie cutter version of history will be the only one known. That's the other part of the operation. The PR rebrands the violence and in most instances completely erases it. You will graduate from an American high school like I did and never learn that Tulsa happened. You'll learn that Columbus discovered a land that millions of people already lived on. You'll learn that slavery was an economic system with some moral complications, not stained terrorist project which led to the original apartheid state of Jim Crow that it actually was. But if you knew the real history, the story wouldn't hold. This is how projection works at a civilizational scale. You cannot commit the crimes they committed and also see yourself as civilized. The human mind cannot hold that contradiction, so you resolve it by transferring it. You make the people you're brutalizing into brutes. You make the people you're stealing from into the criminals. You make the communities you're destroying into the dangerous ones. Anti-blackness was never about black people. It was always about protecting the lie. Because the thing about a constructed arbitrary hierarchy, it doesn't maintain itself. You have to keep building it, keep enforcing it, keep writing it into law, into curriculum, into casting decisions, into sentencing guidelines, into who gets stopped and who gets to walk. A natural order doesn't need that much maintenance, because there's no master race. Race was created, and that creation is constantly being challenged because the framework of this racial hierarchies make no sense. Gravity doesn't need a PR team, but white supremacy does. And it has one of the most sophisticated communications operations in human history. It produced the science, literally invented race science to give hierarchy on an academic costume. And those lies have been perpetuated for so long. People constantly throw out the same statements like black people have smaller brains, or black people aren't as smart and you have lower IQs. And the list goes on. It produced theology, cherry-picked scripture to tell enslaved people that God ordained their change. And that religion is still used to enforce white supremacy to this day. It produced the criminology, built entire fields of study around proving black pathology while ignoring the pathology of the people writing the studies. There's something so fascinating about white culture to me, and that's the normalization of crimes, but like the most heinous crimes that never get thrown on you guys as stereotypes. The idolization of serial killers that get turned into TV shows and movies. Media moguls and figures never facing consequences for sexual assault. It's almost expected for anyone rich to be into pedophilia right now. How you guys rob poor people, all the blue collar crime, having zero empathy for humanity, and the list goes on. The majority of people in Western societies committing these crimes are white. The majority of pedophiles, white, sex offenders, white, thieves, white, and the people who are putting you most at risk and harm are white people, because overwhelmingly, white people kill and commit crimes against other white people. And this is documented and not up for debate. But when all that gets challenged, when the actual data comes out, they call it divisive. They call it anti-white. They call it reverse racism. Because the last move in the playbook is always the same: become the victim of the story you wrote. So when you tell black people they are violent, I want you to look at the body count. When you tell black people are criminals, look at who built the criminal system and why black people are over policed and white people get let go with a slap on the wrist. When they tell you black people are at the bottom because of something we did or didn't do, look at every deliberate policy, every bombed community, every stolen acre, story erased, textbook chapter that put us here and kept us here. The most dangerous thing in the history of the world has not been blackness. It has been the people so threatened by our existence that they built an entire civilization around managing it. We didn't do that to them. They did that to us. And I need you guys to always remember that difference. Stay black, stay blessed.